It was the summer of 1951, and the air smelled of hay and warm rain. My parents had taken me to stay with Aunt Margaret in her sprawling old farmhouse, a place that seemed stitched together from mismatched centuries. I remember the creak of the wide stairs beneath my bare feet, the way the wallpaper in the hallway bloomed with faded roses, like blossoms pressed between pages too long ago. She kept the house dim, even by daylight. Heavy curtains held back the sun, and every room seemed to hum softly, as though beneath the floorboards something was breathing very slowly. I told myself it was just the wind, that the country was full of strange sounds. Aunt Margaret would nod at that, but she never quite met my eyes. In the evenings, I would sit at the kitchen table, sipping milk while the clock ticked unevenly on the wall. She told me stories, old family tales, some about people I knew, most about those long dead. There was one, I recall, about the small door at the end of the attic corridor. She said it didn't open anymore, not since the incident. I didn't ask what the incident was. I was a child then, and adults rarely explained things fully to children. They trusted time to fill in the rest. One afternoon, while she rested in the parlour chair, I climbed alone to the attic. Dust floated in the shafts of light from the gables, and the smell was sweeter there. As if things stored too long began to ferment in the dark, I found the corridor easily. It was narrow as a throat, the wallpaper stripped to reveal wan timber. And at the end, the small door, no taller than a boy. It had no knob, but I swear I heard something from behind it. A slow scrape, a pause, and then what might have been a sigh. I backed away, pressing my hands to my shirt as if to steady my own heartbeat, and the wood seemed to darken. That night, I asked Aunt Margaret if there was a room beyond it. "No room," she said softly, rubbing her temples. "It's only where things wait." I should have left it at that, but children, as you know, are not good at leaving mysteries sealed. Over the next days, I returned again and again. Sometimes the door was utterly silent. Other times, faint murmurs drifted through, like threads of sound. I began to dream about it. In my sleep, I stood before the door and found it open just a crack, enough for something pale and narrow to slip through. On the final night of my stay, rain was falling in long, silver lines across the roof. I woke to the distant sound of the small door opening. It was soft, almost polite. I lay there, listening to careful footsteps descend the attic stairs, cross the landing, and pause outside my bedroom. Aunt Margaret's voice came from the shadows. "You shouldn't have called it," she whispered. I didn't understand. I hadn't spoken, hadn't asked, but something in me knew she was not speaking to me. The next moment, the door to my room creaked inward. I couldn't see what entered, only how the air bent around it, how the space between the bed and the wardrobe seemed to fold. Aunt Margaret began to cry very quietly, her face turned away. The following morning, none of us spoke of it. The house was unreasonably bright, curtains thrown open, breakfast hot on the table. Aunt Margaret smiled at me as though nothing had occurred, yet her eyes were red. I never went back after that summer. Years later, when Margaret died, the farmhouse was emptied. I was given a box of her letters, brittle with age. Among them was a note written in her crooked hand. "Once you've heard it, it knows your voice. It has been over 70 years now. I live in a small apartment by the sea, though I rarely open my windows. Sometimes, in the hush before dawn, I hear the soft scrape, the pause, and the sigh, from somewhere very near. I think the door has finally found me.